Welcome to the Harshie Podcast with January
and Brandon.
We are going to just jump right in it today because I think this is going to be a long one. We're going to talk about our journey, our experience in and out of Mormonism.
Yes.
I actually have never really talked about this. I've never done a post about it because I just haven't felt it's necessary, actually.
Yeah, it's really our business. And
right,
we haven't needed to share it with the world.
And I think that there's more to say than a post, putting on Instagram or Facebook, and things can get taken the wrong way. And before we get started, speaking of, I would like to say that this is just our experience.
Yes.
This is completely unique to myself and to Brandon, and does not speak for anyone else that is Mormon or organized religion or anything like that. We are simply sharing our story because people have asked me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So why don't we start with...
Are you nervous?
I'm not nervous at all.
Apprehensive?
I'm not apprehensive. I am worried about it being a 3-hour-long podcast. There's it was 10 years.
11, actually.
11 of our lives. So a little over a decade. So I would like to start with us sharing a little bit of our background and how we ended up even contemplating being Mormon. So how was that for you growing up with religion?
Well, not a whole lot. My mom was French. She came to the States when she was 21 and met my dad probably about 6 months later. And then they were together about 6 months and then got married. I believe I have my timeline correct. But yeah, I don't think there's a whole lot of excitement about religion in France.
I don't know.
And my mom definitely conveyed that. She was very atheistic, very atheist. And my dad was raised strict Lutheran. But growing up, he never pushed it on us at all. We went to a non-denominational church once in a while. And I don't know, I enjoyed it more, I think, just because I was getting out with my dad and it was fun, but it wasn't a whole lot. I think one time I remember my grandparents staying with us for the weekend.
Which grandparents?
On my dad's side.
Mm-hmm.
My grandmother is a very devout Lutheran. I don't think my grandfather was as much. I think he just went along for the ride. That's what it always seemed like to me. But this one Sunday morning, my grandmother pulls out this children's Bible book that we had that we never looked at, and I was totally confused, wondering what the heck's going on. And she was reading us some lessons out of the book, quote unquote lessons, and going over the creation story. And the only thing I could think of at the time was, what about the dinosaurs? That's one thing that always stuck on my head is, what about those dinosaurs? Where do they fit in? Which day do they fit in creation? So that was really about the extent of it. There wasn't a whole lot of religion in our house growing up at all. My mom hated it whenever it was brought up at all by my grandmother. My mom was just
offended.
Yeah, essentially, yeah. She was pretty offended.
It's interesting when you said that your mom's atheist. I used to get very apprehensive, if we're going to use that word, or kind of scared, or just didn't really understand it at all. So, because I was raised Catholic, and I went to Catholic elementary schools, and I went, of course I was baptized, and I went through my communion and my classes and all that. And I went to Catholic school up through 6th grade. Well, finished 5th grade. So I was raised around that faith. And even though I didn't go to Catholic school and we didn't go to church much after that, it was still a heavy influence in my home. And so growing up, I always had that kind of belief system, I guess. So when you and I started dating at 19, neither one of us were going to church. Neither one of us were particularly religious, but we both had a belief system from our childhood, I guess you could say.
Mm-hmm.
And it was after we were married, right?
Yeah.
That we started discussing going to church. Was it after we were married?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah.
And we discussed going to church. I actually remember us sitting in a bar at New York, in Vegas, discussing religion and how your dad was Lutheran and my family is Catholic, and we didn't know that we really wanted to be part of either one of those religions. We talked a lot about just what we knew from what we've read and the religious study courses we had taken in college. We talked about Buddhism and a few other things. And it was an ongoing conversation for a while. And then we visited a few churches and we just weren't finding anything that was clicking.
Mm-mm.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I was in school at the time in Tucson, Arizona, and, became friends with some of the people in class. And one of the women in my class invited us over just to hang out or whatnot. And it was really funny because she invited us over for dinner, which I thought was odd because, most of the time people were like, hey, do you want to go grab something to eat? Not come over to my house for dinner.
Or meet us at Applebee's at 9 for drinks.
Right, for happy hour. And so, but we did. We went over and we had a great time, but it was very just different than what we were used to. And they asked us if we knew how to play any games. And my response was drinking games.
Beer pong?
So I think we played Phase 10.
Phase 10.
Yes. And
it's for anyone who is Mormon or has been Mormon, that's a classic Mormon
what, Phase
game.
10?
Phase 10.
Risk.
Settlers of Catan.
Yes.
Although I did enjoy that game whenever we played it.
It's a great game. It's good. You got to get your wheat.
Yeah. The wheat, your ore.
Yeah.
But yeah, Settlers of Catan and Phase 10. Man, those are the
I
epitome
laugh
of
about
Mormon
it
games.
because once we became Mormon, we were always inviting people over for dinner and playing games. But I'll never forget how different it was at the time for us.
Yeah, it was another world.
Right. But we became good friends with them. And through our friendship and hanging out with them, we talked about religion, of course. And they were both Mormon and they had both served missions. And now they were married and were pregnant with their second child. So we talked about religion a lot. And it got to the point where they asked us if we wanted to meet with the missionaries, because that's what they do, obviously, is they meet with people and discuss, what Mormonism is about. And we agreed, right?
Yes, we did.
You're better with memories than I am. So
we did agree at first.
Right.
And then we did a couple lessons. But you were pregnant at the time.
Oh, that's right.
The early stages, and you were sick that entire pregnancy.
Yes, I was.
It was with our oldest. And
I think I lost 35 pounds of pregnancy.
Yeah.
At least I got something out of it.
And when the missionaries came over, literally, I opened the door, and there's this little 5-foot missionary in his white shirt and tie. This big old cheesy grin on his face. He's practically standing in the doorway. I mean, I opened the door and I stepped back because I'm in shock. He's like right in my face.
He was awkward.
Looking up at me. I'm like a foot taller than him, but he's still looking at me. He's like, I can't remember what he said.
I don't know. It was.
How you doing? Something like that.
It was like the typical socially awkward Mormon missionary situation. Yeah. And it was just really awkward.
It really was.
It was. And
it's like an Austin Powers nerd alert. Seriously, that's how I remember that guy.
Kid.
Oh my gosh,
poor kid.
I'm sure he's a nice guy.
Yeah,
a little nerdy.
Bless his heart.
Yeah. Bless that poor little nerd.
Stop it. Oh man. So we decided to stop taking lessons.
Yeah, I think we went 2 lessons in and we're like, yeah, we're good.
Yeah, never mind. But of course we stayed friends with our friends and hung out with them, and we both had certain hang-ups about the Mormon faith and not wanting to be a part of it. And for me, I remember we had debates about not drinking anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because we were 24.
24.
24, yeah.
24, yeah.
And so we would play devil's advocate on things like that with the word of wisdom. Because the word of wisdom, let's talk about that real quick. The word of wisdom is basically...
It's no caffeine, no tea. Well, I should say no coffee, no tea, no sodas with caffeine. Basically hot drinks.
No drugs, no alcohol.
No drugs, no alcohol.
It's like a list of rules, basically.
It's interesting because in the Mormon Church, the word of wisdom, there's a lot of stress put on the first 5, 6, 7 verses of this word of wisdom. It's a passage in one of the Mormon scriptures, and literally the first 6 or 7 verses is what you should not do. So no alcohol, no strong drinks, no this, no that. But the rest of it is all these things you should do, and it's actually fairly good, healthy guidelines for things you should eat and how you should take care of yourself and eat meat sparingly. But no one in the church focuses on that. They make all these excuses about the various things that you should do to I guess justify certain things. I think
that's an ongoing frustration. At least it was for us when we were in the church. It was an ongoing frustration for me. I felt like it was everyone focused on a list of sins that wasn't okay.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what about all the other ones that everybody else is doing? So I personally always on and off had some issues with it. I mean, when we were Mormon, I didn't drink. I didn't drink coffee for most of the time. And I did follow the word of wisdom, but it was this ongoing kind of, it's called Mormon culture there's layers within the church, and it was I found myself very frustrated with it. We had, I can't remember how many conversations we had over the 10 years, but anyway, so we discussed that a lot, and then I just could not wrap my mind around Joseph Smith being a prophet. And what happened for me, I mean, obviously we did become Mormons, so let me explain that. So what happened for me is we, continued, of course, talking religion with our friends. And we were talking one day about the prophets in the Old Testament. Now, again, I was raised Catholic, so I had an automatic belief system in the Old Testament and New Testament. And it kind of dawned on me when we were having this discussion that I already believed in prophets. So if I already believed in prophets, why couldn't I believe in new prophets? And so that at the time, with my belief system, I felt that cleared that up for me. And you?
I think I had to hang up about not drinking, not basically the things I couldn't do.
Which is funny because you don't even do that really much.
I didn't much at all at the time, and even now I really don't.
You just didn't want to be told you couldn't.
Yeah, I have always had an issue with people telling me what I can't do. I don't know, it's just this crazy rebellious thing I have in my brain that someone tells me what I can't do, and it's like, oh, well, that's the first thing I'm going to do. And so it was a little tough for me to, I guess, let go of all that. And
being okay to live within that paradigm.
Exactly.
Those parameters.
Perfect word for it.
Yeah, so, but we worked through those things. We talked through those things, and we decided that we couldn't think of any reason not to be baptized. And we felt that it was the closest to the truth of Christianity that we had come across, you being Lutheran, me being Catholic.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing that drew me to the church was the emphasis and support on family.
That was a big one.
Right. So I've talked on previous podcasts about, my family being, like, you're pregnant again, you're going to ruin your life, stop having children, just work, just be a businesswoman. So for me, that was a huge draw and a huge pull to be part of a community that was family positive. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted that in my life. So that was another thing that was a huge draw. And that's the thing in the Mormon church is it really does become community. No matter where you move, you will have people showing up to, unload you and move you in and bring you meals and help you. And you always have a support system available to you. It's phenomenal, actually. Yeah, it's really phenomenal. It's also something that's really hard to leave when you leave the church, but it is really, really phenomenal support system available to you, and everywhere you go, it's going to be the same. So that was a huge draw for me as well. So
for me, it was it kind of fell in line with when you revealed that you were pregnant with our oldest. I had this sudden urge to provide. Mm-hmm. well for my family and take care of my family, and there was also this other fear that I wasn't going to be doing right by my family if I didn't get involved with some kind of religious direction, and so that's something I felt I just felt like I needed some guidance because I didn't have a ton of guidance where a big family was concerned because my parents got divorced when I was 15, and I don't know, it just wasn't a whole lot there for me. I mean, I had my dad and everything, but it wasn't like a big family
right
that I came from. So that was my draw to it, is also the emphasis on family, but for a different reason.
And when you get baptized, you don't know everything, right? It's, once you believe enough big points in the belief system, you're asked if you want to get baptized, and of course you can say no. And we did. The first time we were asked if we want to be baptized, I was like, no.
Yeah.
Like, no. I barely even know anything about this. And so, but you don't know. You would have to probably study it for years before you would know everything to make that decision. So, we felt that we knew enough and we believed enough. And so, we decided to get baptized.
One of the key points when you do get baptized in the church is they always talk about Joseph Smith, who was the founder of the Mormon church, being the keystone of the religion. And if you believe in him being a prophet, then you believe that he translated the Book of Mormon.
Then you believe everything else.
From these, you believe everything. So if you can believe that he's a prophet and wrap your mind around that, then there's no sense in not getting baptized. You might as well become baptized, and there's heavy emphasis on fellowship before you get baptized, so that people feel like they have a sense of community that they're joining, and so that's kind of how it usually happens. That's how it happened for us.
Yeah, and we're converts, so this is an experience of a convert. And our experience as converts, and there was definitely fellowship there, and we did feel included, and we met really wonderful people, and we did come to a place of believing that Joseph Smith could be a prophet. I mean, I don't now, but I can't deny that at the time I did, you know? So
yeah, me too.
Yeah. So we got,
I think I did before you, actually.
Oh yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was like, no, but I already explained that. So, we were baptized. I was 7 months pregnant with our oldest, and the
7 months pregnant. I actually remember the dates. Crazy enough.
What was it?
We were actually baptized on July 17th, 2003.
There you go.
In Tucson, Arizona.
Yep. And we were baptized together the same night.
Which is highly unlikely. It's very rare in the church for a couple to be baptized together. Usually it's the woman. It's the woman, yeah.
Usually.
The husband's husband or partner's got to come around.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times husbands think more logically.
So I wasn't thinking logically then?
I don't know what you were doing.
I just jumped in that damn water with you.
It was a good experience. I to be perfectly honest, it was a good experience. There was nothing negative about it. It was a great experience. And
your 6X white jumpsuit.
Oh yeah, they didn't have a size to fit around my belly. I was of course plus size, and then I was 7 months pregnant, and none of the jumpsuits would fit around my belly. So I ended up in this 6X all white. I was practically sinking in that pool or tub of water.
People probably wonder what we're talking about. When you get baptized in the church, you wear this white jumpsuit. It's basically like a white onesie. You zip up, and that's what they fill up this big tub with water, and depends on where he is. It could be freezing cold, it could be lukewarm, just depends. But then you submerge your entire body. You hold on, the person baptizing, you hold on to their arm in a certain way so that you don't.
Well, everything in the Mormon church is a certain way.
Yeah,
but go ahead.
Very organized. But yeah, you dunk your entire body in.
Yeah.
And then you come all the way back up.
Right.
It's not a little sprinkling of water like it is elsewhere.
I know, when you're Catholic, basically.
Yeah,
That's how it was for me. So yeah, it was a good experience, and we had a great. It's called a ward instead of a congregation. You go to the ward that you're assigned to based on the boundaries of where you live. Right?
Yeah, it's kind of like a school district.
Yes.
So your kids go to the school depending on where you live, and depending on where you live is which ward you go into. And wards are a part of a stake, which is, I guess, like a regional area.
Believe it or not, I had just as hard of a time with this concept as I did Joseph Smith being a prophet. I just did not understand how I couldn't just choose to go to the ward that my friend was in. But you really can't. It really does not work.
Them's the rules.
I know. And you have to follow the rules when you're Mormon. Let me tell you what.
Yes.
It's all about the rules. And which is so funny that I ended up becoming Mormon because
me too.
We don't usually follow rules. Yeah. So
I don't suck.
But yeah, so we were active in the church for a couple years. You're better with time than I am. We were, let's see.
Well, from what time period are you?
So after we were baptized.
Right.
And then we had a few period of times where we did question things.
Oh yeah, so we were really, I guess you call it true blue Mormon. We were true blue Mormon for about 4 years. Mm-hmm. We were in our first ward in Tucson for about 5 weeks before we moved back up to Phoenix, and then we were in that ward for about a year. Then we moved to Dallas so I could go to chiropractic school, and we were in that ward for a couple years. Mm-hmm. And that was actually kind of a rude awakening because if you know even the littlest about the Mormon church, you know that Utah, Idaho, Arizona, California, kind of the Western United States there's a big, heavy Mormon population. And the wards we were in Arizona were really, really great, I thought. They were really down to earth. Mm-hmm. People were really relaxed. When we got to Dallas, it was mostly people from Utah, and not to offend anyone from Utah, but
I think anyone from Utah will agree with you.
Right. Anyone who is in the Mormon church who is not from Utah knows that there is a difference in Mormons from Utah.
It is different.
It was a rude awakening, and we came from this very family oriented ward in Phoenix where the whole ward actually felt like a family. Like we felt really sad that we were leaving.
Yeah.
And we come to this ward. It was basically a student ward. There were a lot of med students there. There were a ton of chiropractic students, which shocked me. Dental students. And so we get there, and it was
very transient.
Very transient
people
ward.
In and out. Yeah.
And very just, I don't know.
Not as down to earth.
No, not as down to earth.
Yeah.
It was.
And I want to back up for a second and say that within that 4 years, 1 year after we were baptized, we did go through the temple.
Oh, yes.
Which
yes.
we're not going to talk about. I mean, if you really want to know what happens in the temple, I'm sure you can Google that and find stuff nowadays. But
yeah. We'll be respectful of.
Absolutely. So we did go through the temple, and we were sealed as a couple, and our daughter was sealed to us. And it was actually it was a beautiful experience. The temples are beautiful. You can go through a temple before they're sealed. Right? And
when they build the temple before they open it, they open it to the public for about 3 weeks before it's open for business for only Mormons.
Right. And so if you ever have the opportunity to go through one during that time frame, do it. I mean, they're beautiful and they're peaceful. And
they really are.
Absolutely. So
if you're ever in San Diego driving along the freeway there, and you've seen the Mormon temple there, holy smokes!
And we've been inside that temple.
That place is amazing.
Yeah, we did ordinances in that temple actually.
Yeah, those spires. I mean, you're actually in the room. You're looking straight up. Those spires all the way to the top. It's crazy a piece of architecture.
Doesn't that temple have some of the most weddings? I think the fairy tale temple to get wedded.
It literally looks something out of a Disney movie.
It's so neat. It is really, really beautiful. So we did go through the temple and we did
the Mesa Temple, by the way.
Right, and we were sealed, which is when Mormons get married in the temple, they're sealed. Really, is what's happening
for all time and eternity.
That's right. We're stuck together forever. And so we did. I mean, like Brandon said, for 4 years, we, held callings in the church and we gave talks and we went through the temple and we did everything, by the rules, I should say. And then about 4 years in are you talking about when you took a break from school? Yeah.
So I was, I'd finished 2 years of chiropractic school and I was we went by 15-week trimesters. And so I was in
6 out of 9, right?
Try 7. Yeah,
7.
I was starting my final year, Try 7, and I just had such stress. I was miserable.
How many credits is chiropractic grad school?
Well, the most we had was 29 credits in the trimester. That was actually our second trimester when our son was born. That was. Yeah. Gosh, that was a hell of a trimester.
Yeah, it was.
But at the time in Try 7, I was taking definitely over 20. And then we had clinic. That was our first trimester of outpatient clinic where you're actually trying to get real patients, dealing with each other, other students and things like that. So I was really stressed out and miserable. And at first we decided to I was going to take a break from school, just take a trimester off and, maybe just work that summer. But it just got really bad for me, so I ended up deciding I was done. I was quitting chiropractic school. I was finished. I didn't want to be a chiropractor anymore. Mm-hmm. And so I dragged our family back to Arizona.
Almost literally.
Yeah, pretty much.
That was rough.
If this is not a sign, the day we were moving away from Dallas, it was like this crazy rainstorm. So we're loading up the truck during this rainstorm, and man.
And I was pregnant with our third.
Oh yeah,
baby.
That's right. Yeah, you're.
And I was really, really happy where we were.
Yeah,
so that was...
I screwed up everything.
No, stop.
Well, I did. I'll take ownership of that.
Yeah, you did.
Because the ensuing 10 months was brutal back in Arizona. It just was not a good time.
You say you screwed up everything, but I also completely supported your decision. So that's what we do.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah. So I completely supported it. And when we moved back to Arizona, where our family is, you were just done with everything. You were done with school. You were done with the church.
Yeah.
You said you were over it. That was really the first time that either one of us spoke up and said, I don't believe in this. Yeah. And I don't want any part in it. And it was interesting because you felt really strongly about it. And I felt kind of like, well, I was actually preparing to have a VBAC after 2 cesareans. So I was completely focused on that. And so I felt like, well, whatever, so I didn't force it either way. So for those of you who aren't Mormon, when you are a member of the church and you stop going, you're called an inactive member. So we were inactive for how long?
It was a few months. I think it was about 3, maybe 4 months.
I thought it was longer.
That were actually truly inactive. Mm-hmm. I was kind of done with it. I think mentally I was a little bit checked out before then, but for me, I got to the point where I was just sick of it. And I was actually was working for January's grandparents during that time period, and I'd had to go to the bank, to Wells Fargo there in Scottsdale, and on my way out I was like, I'm sick of this crap. And I pulled out my Temple Recommend, which is like it's like you're a card carrying member the Mormon church. That's how you get into the temple, and you have to go through a temple interview every 2 years to make sure it's
Make sure that you're not doing any of the sins on the unapproved list.
Right. Yeah.
Yes.
Make sure you're not drinking any coffee or tea or anything.
Can you tell how I feel about this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just took out my temple recommend. I took out my wallet and just tossed it in the trash. And I'm like, screw this. I'm done. I've had enough. And for those of you who are Mormon listening to this, I know you are probably thinking, holy crap.
Yeah.
Because that when you're Mormon, you hear something like that. I was like, whoa, that's
this
extreme.
Guy.
Yeah, this guy. But
yeah.
I really was. And,
yeah.
And
I didn't push it one way or the other.
Yeah, I don't know. Just wasn't in a good headspace at the time. That's really all I can say.
Well, and Brandon swore he was never, ever, ever going to go back to chiropractic school and be a chiropractor. And so we had our third baby, and I did have my VBAC and in the hospital. I'm supposed to be at home, but I was in the hospital and got home with 3 kids, ages 4 and under.
4 and under, yeah. Let's see. Yeah, 4 and under.
They were 4 and under. Yeah. And so,
wow,
yeah, it was intense times. And one day, Brandon woke up and said, I need to talk to you. And I said, okay.
That was New Year's Day, 2008.
That's right. And so our baby was 2 months old, almost 3 months old. No, 2.5. And he said, I need to talk to you. And I was like, okay, now what? And
what now?
Yeah. I mean, to say we were not getting along that postpartum is probably an understatement. And he said, what did you say?
I said, I think I need to go back to school.
Oh my gosh.
But first, I was thinking maybe going to naturopathic school because there was a naturopathy school there in Tempe in the Phoenix area. And because whatever it took to not go back to Dallas and have to see the people I went to school with and eat crow, whatever crow I thought I had to eat in my mind. I didn't want to go back. So,
but I told you that if you were going to go back to school, that's where we were going.
Yeah, well, and then I decided, well, maybe I should go back to chiropractic school. And I was going to try to go to Life West, which is a school. Life Chiropractic College West is in the San Francisco area, in Hayward, California specifically. But it's an arm and a leg to live up there. So
right.
We didn't know
so
we wanted to do that.
We moved back to Dallas.
Yeah.
Area.
We moved back to Dallas.
Yeah. And
I was persuaded heavily.
Yeah, but the only way we could afford to get back there was to sell and give away everything we owned and loaded up our 3 kids in our minivan and whatever we could fit in there. And we drove back, and that's all we had. And when we got there, we even had to sell a few books just so we had a little bit of gas money and food for you to get to school.
Actually, it was to get to stake conference.
That's right.
Which, when you're in the Mormon church, twice a year, there's a stake conference. So all the wards that are in a stake, which, like I said before, is like a little region within the city you're in, you have a conference, and people in the stake presidency or in your ward, they're within a 2-hour span, people give talks. And ours was, our stake conference was up at the little coliseum there at UNT in Denton, and we didn't have any gas money to get there.
Right, so we sold some books.
We sold some books, like $12 worth of books.
And what's interesting about this time frame, it was like the week or 2 before you went back to school, so we didn't have our student loan yet or anything, and we moved back into a ward we had previously been in, so we knew the people there, and we just kind of flowed right back into becoming active members again. Yeah, and like I said earlier, what's so amazing about the church, I was able to call my Relief Society president, which is the person who has a calling over the women's society group in the church. And she came over and we met, and, I told her our situation, and we were able to get some food from the church, and they helped us, for that week or 2 in between while we were at school. And again, that's what's one of the things that was so wonderful about the church, even when I had questions or doubts about the doctrine or the faith, was I always had community and I always had support. And I'm really grateful for that. Even now, really grateful for that. Yeah. And it's very valuable. And so after that, we were there for another year then, right? Yes, we were there for a year, and we continued to be active in the church.
Yeah, we were active. Let's see, we were active
You know what? It was after it wasn't until we had the bull. So we were for a few more years, right?
Well, actually, we started to question things again in 2010.
Okay.
I actually got an associate chiropractor position with a doc here in Austin, ironically, for only about 4 months. It was during that time. That was a pretty rough 4 months. And church was not on our list of priorities.
No, basically surviving was.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about this later in a different podcast, but probably when we tell the bull's birth story. But we were homeless that pregnancy. Yeah. And we moved 4 times during that pregnancy. So it was a really rough time. But once we even got settled into our new apartment, that's when, just like you doubted things a few years before, that's when I was kind of not feeling it. And I was having a lot of doubts, about Joseph Smith being a prophet and about, the issues with, just different things. I don't really want to get into doctrine stuff, but
no.
I was just having some issues with some of the things that I was supposed to believe that I didn't. So we weren't really part. We didn't go to that ward, and we weren't really part of the church there. And then when you got the opportunity to open a practice in Childress, Texas, it's a very small town. And once again, when we moved there, the Mormon church, like, they keep records on you. And so when you're moving out of a ward and you let them know, they transfer your records to the new ward. Mm-hmm. And so they knew we were coming almost before we knew we were coming, and they show up and they helped us unload our truck. And then once again, we went right back into the community of the local, well, it was a branch because it was so tiny. I think we made up like a tenth of the people.
Yeah. When you have you have a ward, but if there's not enough people to make up a ward, it's a branch. A little tiny branch.
Yeah, so it was a branch. And we were in a small town, and it was a small branch. And we just, once again, kind of, it's really interesting being part of, well, probably any church, especially something, but with the Mormon church, it's, you're a member and you have records. And if you don't go to church, they're coming to check on you and, make sure you're okay, and then wonder why you're not coming, or, and so it's very, at least I felt it was very easy to just keep going with emotions, to keep just going along with it, because the thought of not going along with it and not going with emotions meant giving up so many other things, like that community and that support. Yeah. Because really one comes with the other.
Yeah. And when we moved to that little town, we moved there because I had an opportunity to start up a really great practice. And that's what happened. I went down a couple weekends in August of 2011 and had a lot of success with chiropractic. And I gotten the lady that helped me come down there. She put me into contact with one of the Mormon families down there in that town, and that's how we were able to find a house to rent. And
it's true.
And it was a sense of, even though we didn't know them very well or at all, it was a sense of familiarity in an unfamiliar place, because city folk like us, living in cities that were at least 1 million people our whole life, living in a little town of about 6,000 was incredibly unfamiliar.
And again, all I have is just gratitude, Obviously we're getting there, that we're not Mormon anymore, but I don't have any sense of bitterness or, anything negative. I feel that anything I didn't like along the way or anything I didn't believe along the way was my journey, and but my overall experience, I personally feel, in the Mormon church was a positive, supportive one. Mm-hmm. I am grateful that I had it in my life during the time that I did. And which probably leads to discussing then, why am I not Mormon anymore? Why are we not Mormon anymore? And that's a few reasons. But around this time when we moved to that little Texas town was when I mentioned in our last podcast that I was drinking coffee because the bull was around 6 months old when we moved there.
Yes.
6-7 months old, and I had really bad postpartum depression.
It was really bad.
And so I was drinking coffee kind of under the radar still, and over time I became more and more just, this is what you get, and we were part of all the activities. We had callings in that branch. We went to the temple. We had to drive 2.5 hours to go to the Lubbock temple. I went to the temple, and we were raising our kids in the church. And that's another thing too, is being that we were raising them in the church, I felt scared to leave, and I personally have a feeling of organized religion using guilt and things like that to keep people in the church. So in the churches. And so I had some of that going on, and I didn't know, even though I was doubting some things, I didn't know how to articulate everything that I was feeling. And I think that, you can question things to an extent. And then if you keep questioning things, you're not having enough faith. At least that's been my experience and the experience of some people that I know. So I just didn't feel really comfortable going there completely.
Right.
But our oldest daughter, around this time started kind of being over it. She
I think she was a little bit over it before we moved.
She was baptized when we were there. But
yes.
A little while after that, she was kind of expressing disinterest and not wanting to attend or whatnot. But so I had some of those doubts there about, well, what would it be like if I didn't raise my kids in the church, and would I regret it one day, and that kind of thing. Something that we did not have to deal with when we started doubting things was having family in the church.
Yes,
we are converts, and so our families are not Mormon. So I know our experience, again, is just our experience, because we have a close friend who his family goes back to.
Yeah, he's a descendant of one of the early presidents of the church.
All the way back. And so, when he was raised Mormon and served a mission, and everything, like been in the church his entire life, taught it, baptized people, the whole thing. And when he started questioning things and wasn't getting, he's a very educated man, and wasn't getting, the conversations he needed and the answers he needed, and then eventually left the church, his experience was much different than ours.
Yeah, he's had a rough time.
Right. So for us, we didn't have that extra layer on it. It was more of just our doubts, and I didn't disbelieve things enough to walk away.
Right.
But I didn't believe things enough anymore to feel completely confident in it anymore. So I was in this limbo stage. And so I kind of was in this phase of, well, I'm going to go to church, and I'm going to be active Mormon, and I'm also just going to be me. And if that means I use a bad word and it means I drink coffee, then okay. I don't know how much people liked that, but I didn't care. So I was in that phase for a while, towards the end of us being in that town, and definitely when we moved back to Austin. And the ward we were in, and when we came back to Austin, was actually wonderful. Yeah. I actually really, really loved it. But I think by then I was pretty close to, not really believing anymore.
Well, and the thing is too, is when we were in that town, when you're part of the church in that town, you are completely immersed.
Yeah, you're all in.
And there's one family there that makes up at least a third to half of that entire branch.
Like a half to 2/3.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, you're true. That's
right.
That's right.
Yeah.
And like January was saying, they come and check on you. There's something, you have home teaching and visiting teaching. So the women, they're in Relief Society, and that's where the women go. And then they have visiting teaching, where they have some families or some people that they call each month, right?
Yeah, you go and you give a lesson and you check in.
Yeah. And it's kind of that way with the men, but more is expected. You have to actually get into the people's home and teach them a lesson, and you have to do that once a month. And this is one of the things, even right in the very beginning when we first were baptized, it just always felt like I don't know if it's really home teaching more than it is keeping tabs on people.
That's how you felt about it.
That's how I've always
felt
felt
it was
about
intrusive.
it. And man, oh man, there was just such an emphasis on that when we were in that little town. I got so sick of it. And
well, that's what's so interesting about leaving the church is that I used to hold callings where I sat in on the leader meetings talking about people who were inactive and how we needed to reach out to them.
We need to save the one.
I know. I know what's being said, and I know the thought process there.
I was a branch missionary.
I know.
In that town.
So we know the thought process on the other side of things. And anyways, so a few things happened to make me finally decide that I no longer wanted to be a member of the church.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing is I found out through like a Netflix movie, because I like watching like just random stuff. And it was a Netflix movie. I don't remember the name of it, but it was about some Mormon missionaries who ended up being gay, and then their journey, and then them being excommunicated from the church, which is, many people's experience. But, in this movie, it was brought up that Joseph Smith had a 14-year-old wife. Now, I know that Joseph Smith was a polygamist. Everybody knows that he was. Everybody knows he had multiple wives. I knew that he had younger wives. I did not know that he had a 14-year-old wife. And actually, I think he had two
14-year-old wives and a 17-year-old wife.
And I felt no way. How could I be a member of the church this long and not know this? And so I looked it up, and I found that it was completely true. The next emotion I had was I felt completely and totally freaking stupid, because that means that I did not do my due diligence, and I had no one else to blame, even though it wasn't open information, that how could I not have known this? And for me personally, I have 6 kids, and I have a daughter who's almost 14, and it was very upsetting. And this was not that long ago. I didn't want to hear any arguments. I didn't want to talk about it with anybody. I wasn't okay with it. Period. I was not okay with it.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't like it. And I was very upset about it, and I talked to Brandon about it.
Mm-hmm.
I was very, very upset about it. I told him that I didn't think that it was okay. And Brandon and I do everything together. We jump in and out of whatever together. And so this opened up some serious conversation, you know, and I told Brandon that I'm done. We've gone back and forth the last few years, and, I go to church, and we had a calling again, and we were going to church, and I just was not feeling it. I didn't feel the truth of it anymore, and it wasn't anything that I felt I needed to work on.
Yeah, no.
And I remember what I said to you. I asked Brandon, if Joseph Smith was alive today, would you follow him as a prophet? And we were driving, and you sat there for a minute, and you said, well, no.
Well, no, because it wasn't too long before that Warren Jeffs, who was the so-called prophet of the FLDS church, which is a spin-off of, or they broke away from the Mormon church in 1890 when polygamy was outlawed, and they still practice polygamy. Well, this guy, who was the president of the FLDS church, the feds did a big raid on their compound in El Dorado, Texas, which is kind of by San Angelo, and they arrested him, and he got sent to prison. I don't know, either for a long time or the rest of his life, but he had young wives like that, and he was essentially a modern day Joseph Smith. So no, I absolutely not. I wouldn't follow someone like that today.
Is that why you came to that conclusion?
Yeah, it is exactly why I came to that conclusion.
For me, it was just based solely on what I had learned more of as I educated myself further about Joseph Smith himself.
Also at that time too, the church, this was a few years ago, about 2014, and the church during that year is when they started disclosing
it was
the essays
right after this.
On LDS.org, they started disclosing essays on kind of some tough topics that they've had some issues with, and one of those was Joseph Smith and polygamy. And so it was actually the church that came out and admitted that Joseph Smith had wives as young as 14, and he had as many as 25 wives. some of whom he married who were already married to other men. It was a crazy thing. And so
I had been part of many conversations with women in the church about polygamy, and I heard all of the reasons, all of the excuses, all of the, justifications, and I was over it. Like, to me, there was no longer, it was just is what it is. And so there was that.
Right.
The other thing that happened for me personally, other than just not believing everything anymore, not believing that I could follow Joseph Smith anymore, was we were sitting. This is the last time I ever went to church, and it was kind of all. This was all like around the same time, and we went to church that Sunday, and I was sitting in the sacrament meeting, and the older gentleman.
Real quick before we just explain, church is 3 hours long on Sunday.
It's a day of rest, though. Sunday's a day of rest.
Yeah, day of rest my ass.
I never felt like it was a day of rest.
Sundays are the busiest days of the week when you're Mormon.
I know.
Because you go to church for 3 hours, you gotta get your kids ready for church in the morning, which is 2 hours, and then you have callings you gotta do and home teaching. Sundays are nuts.
Yeah.
But anyways, church is 3 hours. The first hour and 15 minutes is sacrament meeting,
which you sit in with your children, and they're expected to be quiet the entire time.
Exactly. And
I literally have had what are they? Bishops? No.
Bishops.
Yeah. I've literally, one time we had a bishop who advised us to cover our children's mouths as we walk them out if they're making any sound. Yeah. How well did that go over for me?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I encouraged my children to be louder after that.
Yeah. Yeah. The bishop is the leader of the ward, which is kind of equivalent to a pastor, but he doesn't give sermons every week. They ask different people in the congregation or the ward to give a talk. So you typically have a youth speaker, and then the female speaker, and then sacrament meetings ended by a male speaker.
Right, because, males are in charge of everything.
Right.
So
and then you got the second hour, which is your Sunday school stuff. And then third hour, the women go to Relief Society, and the men go to Elders Quorum, which is literally the most boring thing you could possibly go to. Like, half the guys are sleeping. The other half are like staring at the paint dry, even though it's been dry for years, and it's just god awfully boring.
It's always the same guy or two answering all the questions, right?
Yeah, it's like the same lesson every like 4 or 5 months, and every year they give you a little booklet of lessons based on a president of the church, and so this year is Brigham Young. Next year it'll be Harold B. Lee.
Stop. Well, real quick too, how many times have you read the Book of Mormon from front to back, Brandon?
I have actually read the Book of Mormon 5 times.
From front to back.
Front to back.
Yes. So Brandon has read the whole Bible. He's read. Now, I will tell you that I have never read the Book of Mormon from front to back, because once I got through Alma, I was just done. It's exhausting. Yeah. So I got to the point where I was reading my sexy vampire books and Relief Society on my Kindle app on my phone. But I
actually read all the scriptures. I've read the entire Old Testament. I've read the entire New Testament. Read the whole Book of Mormon. The Doctrine of Covenants, which is a set of scriptures that kind of lay out the foundations and rules of the church. I've read all that. I've essentially I read and studied the scriptures for most of those 11 years that we were in the church. You did. So I know it pretty darn well.
Right. Yeah. So just in case anybody was wondering if Brandon knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
He kind of does.
And to be even more obscure, for you Mormons, my favorite character in the Book of Mormon is Tiankum, because he assassinated some bad guy. It's pretty awesome. That was the best part.
Can I talk?
Yeah.
No, that's okay, because I've talked a lot too.
I'm just establishing that I actually know what I'm talking about.
You do know what you're talking about. You know more what you're talking about than I do when it comes to doctrine and scriptures, for sure.
But go on to that meeting.
So we were sitting in this meeting, and the gentleman giving the talk, I don't know his exact topic, but he went off on a few tangents. And one was that women should not believe the media, and that our bodies we should have autonomy over our own bodies.
You should not have autonomy. Yeah.
We should not. And
he literally actually said those basic words.
And I just I sat there shocked, like, what the hell did he just say? And I looked at Brandon. I'm like, what the heck did he just say? And Brandon just looked at me and he could just see me getting worked up. Then he went on to talk about how being gay was a sin and sinful, and went on this tangent on that. Now,
about gay marriage,
and gay marriage, right? Because
Yeah.
this was right. This was before, this was when it was becoming more clear that gay marriage might become a thing, a reality, which I think is awesome. So I'm sitting here listening to him say these things, and I just felt my skin crawling, because that is nothing what I stand for at all. And I felt like such a hypocrite just sitting in the presence of this teaching, and I did not want my children hearing this. And I looked at Brandon and I was pissed. Like furious. I was fuming. He literally said to me, January, please do not make a scene in the middle of sacrament meeting.
I did. I was petrified because there was like 300 people in there.
I said, that is why you married me, is because I do things like that.
That is true.
And I stared down every man sitting up on the, what's it called? What they set up there in front of the congregation.
The pulpit.
Yeah. Facing us I just stared them down. And then I looked at my oldest daughter, because I did not want her hearing this crap. The other kids weren't paying any attention. And I said, we're leaving right now. And she's like, okay. Because she was over. She already had told us she didn't want to be Mormon anymore.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so we walked out, and I was fuming. The moment it was done, we left. And I told Brandon, I'm done. Like, I'm absolutely done. I personally cannot be part of an organized anything that is going to speak against things that I believe in. Like, I believe in equality, and I believe in love, and I believe in women having control and say over what happens and doesn't happen to their bodies. And I couldn't anymore. Like, it was literally the final straw for me, and I never went back. That was it. So that is how I ended up personally coming to the decision of being done and leaving the church. I actually think you and the kids went back once or twice.
We did. We went back once, actually. You were out of town.
I was.
For a meetup. One of your birth off your meetups. And real quick before I get there, there was something else that he said too in that talk that was offensive.
I don't know. I was done after that.
There were 3 points that he made. And
they were all offensive.
They were all bigoted. And it's crazy to me because, when all the men meet in the third hour, we meet, there's the elders quorum, which is kind of like the 20, 30-year-old guys. Then you got the high priest, which is like the old guys. And then you have, the teenagers and all the guys get together. And he was one of the high priests, and heard him talk, and he seemed like a nice guy. So he came out with all this. And this was literally one of the most bigoted talks I'd ever heard in church, if not the most.
And everyone just sat there like it was no big deal.
Yeah, and we'd heard some weird talks before, but that one, it shocked me too. And But yeah, we went one more time. I took all the kids. You did.
I walked away and never went back.
I actually was nuts and got them all ready and went. And we literally just sat out in the hall, which for those people the foyer, sorry. Right. Yeah, those of you in the church, you have kids. You're out in the foyer walking down the hall with your noisy toddler. And so we all sat out there, and people were just walking around being noisy, and it was so unenjoyable. And I was just like, what? Why the hell am I even here? This is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. I could be home relaxing with my kids, watching a cool show, playing in the backyard, literally having
a day of rest,
having a good time with my kids, and having that dynamic with them. Instead, I'm sitting there in this,
telling them to be quiet.
Yeah, it was just
basically
asinine.
Telling them not to be children.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. And so, yeah, that was actually the last time that I went.
Whew, just talking about that again has me worked up. Like, I can't. Yeah. And then shortly after we left was when the news came out about if you have gay parents in the church.
That was a little bit later.
It was later.
But
that if you have gay parents in the church, that you cannot be baptized till you're 18. Is that what it is?
Yeah,
Am I right? You know more about this than I do.
Yeah, that was about a year after we had left, but there was a pretty big. I remember when I heard about that. I looked at you and I was like, See, like, no. For the Mormon Church, it really started back in, I believe it was 2008 in California. The Proposition 8
Right.
And those of you listening in California, I'm sure you're probably really familiar, but the church really did. They actually violated a number of campaign laws and spending money to go against that, to keep Proposition 8 from passing, which was legalizing gay marriage in California. And so there was been a backlash against the church by the gay community for a while, and deservedly so, in my opinion. I
know you're telling me this, and I'm sitting here like, why was that not it for me? I know, I don't.
Well, because when in the church, no one really talked about it, or if they did, it's like, oh no, they're just donating money. They're not doing anything.
Right.
They were actually, they were violating laws and pushing for it. So it was, and also at the time when we were leaving, is the church started practicing this full disclosure. They admitted to how Brigham Young was the one that took away the priesthood. When you're a male, you can have the Aaronic priesthood when you're younger, and then when you're older, you can get the Melchizedek priesthood. And
this is all common knowledge, by the way.
Yeah, this is all common knowledge. I'm not sharing anything secretive, but Brigham Young, who was the second president of the church, he took that ability to hold the priesthood away from, at the time, it was African Americans.
People of color.
People of color, and that wasn't reversed until 1978.
And you know what? I didn't know until right before we left the church that Joseph Smith had granted that to everyone. And it wasn't until the second president of the church that took it away.
Yeah, it was Brigham Young. Yeah.
I mean, these are things that were not discussed until recently.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that Joseph Smith did right.
Right. It was well known that they didn't have the priesthood and they didn't get it back where they could have it until 1978.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we went to a class and a discussion on it where the information was coming more frank and more open. And I mean, I remember after we went to that meeting, I looked at you and like, how can everybody just sit here and be okay with this? Like, this is not okay,
Yeah, it was a fifth Sunday meeting, which is when you have 5 Sundays in the church. That fifth Sunday, the men and women meet together, and we were sitting there and they were talking about this whole thing.
Because,
we were looking at each other,
none of this like was a lot of this history was pushed under the rug.
Yeah,
and I think with the age of social media and things like that, like you can't just push things under the rug. So there were a lot of different things that kind of came up in that year, and a lot of personal things that I've just explained that I just was not comfortable being a part of, and not things that I was okay with that were, I feel, are wrong. And so anyways, we left the church. When was it that we actually left? Like,
it was 2014.
When we officially walked away.
It was 2014, but for me, what was the final nail in the coffin was my dad passed away in early July of 2014. And it was kind of weird because for a couple of years, I'd been having this weird anxiety or fear about death. I don't know. And it was like this guilt, because when you're in the church and you hold a temple recommend and callings, you have to act at a certain level so that you can get to the celestial kingdom, which is the highest of the 3 levels of heaven, which is, I don't want to get much deeper in that, but yes, there are 3 levels of heaven in the Mormon church. And so the highest one is where you're in the presence of God.
I always said that I was cool partying in the 3rd level.
Yeah.
Even when we were active in the church, I'm like, I'm cool.
The celestial kingdom, you were with God. The terrestrial, you're with Jesus, and with the telestial, you're with the Holy Ghost.
Hey,
maybe
me and
all the sinners.
The Holy Ghost and the sinners are going to get down. Like, that sounds like the place to be.
Yeah, I might be having that part wrong about the Holy Ghost there. So it's been a little while.
I don't
think
it is. I think it's something else. But yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, so there's this constant.
I feel so far removed. It's actually, you guys. It's actually was hard to do this podcast because I don't think about this much anymore, and I feel so far removed from this. So
me too. I just have a good memory.
We're trying to share as much as possible, but I feel like some of the details are I'm having to pull them out. They're a little hazy because I feel like this was 10 years ago. Yeah. I feel very, very far removed from it.
Really just a few years ago. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But Yeah. So, anyways, I'd had this guilt because you want to live according to standards that get you into the celestial kingdom, and like January said before, in organized religion, there's always a lot of guilt associated with it, and I think that kind of mixed with that feeling. And when my dad passed away, it's like something clicked in my mind. Like, we're all going to die, and there's not one person better than another because they follow this set of rules and this person doesn't. That stuff just felt like it didn't matter anymore. I lost my dad, and I was really close to him, and he was a good dad to me. And
yeah, I remember you saying that you didn't want to focus on this religion or that religion or rules, but you just wanted to focus on being as healthy as you could while you were here and to spend time with your family.
Yeah, I mean, live as good a life as I can, be as great an example as I can, and make as big of an impact as I can. That, to me, that's what I thought would be living a good life. And so for me, that was it. I was done with the church.
It was a visible weight off your shoulders because, there was always this thought in this conversation we had that if we don't have a church telling us what our moral compass should be, well, we have a good enough moral compass. Yeah. And I know some of you listening right now know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And when we decided we were done with not just the Mormon church, but organized religion, we found the opposite to be true. And I know you said, I feel that my personal ethics and moral compass is even better than what it was when I was trying to follow a certain set of, rules or whatever in this certain church. So we found it to be where our moral compass and our ethics and the last few years, I feel like I've learned so much more being outside of that box.
Yeah.
I've educated myself beyond what I was being taught, and I am always evolving. I'm always learning, and I felt like I felt like there was no more room for growth for me where I was at. And now I feel like there's more growth than I'll ever be able to even get to or attain. There's so much I need to learn and do better at and be better at. So it was very not liberating. It was very empowering, and we've grown more in the last few years than we did probably in like at least the previous 5, before that. So. The other thing I wanted to touch on real quick was anytime we prayed in the church, we were told that we would get an answer from the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit. And I have a very strong intuition and a very, very strong, my gut, my intuition, my innate, whatever you want to call it. And I remember the whole time we were in the church, I was like, well, if I no longer believe that, will I get the answers to different things or what I need. And along the way through this journey that I've just shared with you, I started realizing that it was really my innate, answering me. It was shutting out everything around me, shutting out other people's opinions, shutting out other people's thoughts and advice, and slowing down enough. Just like when people meditate, right? Like I really feel like prayer is a form of meditation, and I feel like prayer works. It is. It's a form of meditation, and it's slowing down your mind and really focusing on something intently, and your brain is able to pull together all the information consciously and subconsciously that you have about whatever it is that you're thinking about or praying about, to then quietly listen. And then you know what you need to do, or what the answer is, or what you're telling yourself or trying to tell yourself to. And so I have found that I still have that. I don't know what you're going to call it, but that gift, not, it was a gift supposedly only I'd have if I was in the church. And it's like, no, that's a gift that I have inside me, inside my soul, inside my brain, that's not something that I would only have if I'm part of one certain organized religion. So.
No, you're just a mutant. You belong with the X-Men.
No. So
you're making me want to pray now.
We should. And
get on our knees.
I'm sure some of you are probably thinking, then what is it that we believe now? And you know what? I don't I'm not going to answer that. Because I think that's an ongoing thing for me right now. I'm very far removed from organized religion, which I never thought would happen because I was around some form or another of Christianity for most of my life. I never thought that I would feel comfortable and secure in being away from an organized religion. And it feels so comfortable and normal being so. And I feel like my religion is kindness and growth and learning and being better. And I think it's going to continue to change and evolve over the rest of my life as I do. So I don't have a definite answer for that right now. And if that makes you uncomfortable, that's your problem and not mine. Because
I feel pretty comfortable with
I'm very comfortable with it. Yeah. And I am completely respectful of everybody's faiths and what they believe in. And I think that if the root of what we're doing is through love, then that's good. And I shouldn't say everyone. I should say people who are doing through love and kindness. There's probably some, I shouldn't say that, but two of our worst business experiences in the last 7 years have been good church going people. Well, no, I don't mean that, but I'm sure there's some groups that aren't doing things through love or whatever. But so I'm just saying that any of you guys listening, I totally respect your faith. That's what I'm trying to say. And
me too.
My you do you boo philosophy is with most things, including this. And I feel very at peace with our decision to not be part of Catholic Church, Mormon Church, any of them. And I don't have any huge inspirational person or group or anything like that when it comes to this right now, because I think I'm just on my own personal journey. But what about you?
I wouldn't disagree with anything you said. I'm definitely not into organized religion myself anymore at all. I just like you said before, I felt a weight lifted off with my dad passing away, and I think if there's anything that I might ever look into, I think, and we've talked about this, Buddhism has always sounded intriguing, but
even then, I don't think that I would believe every single thing in any faith. Like, what did I tell you? If I could go back to school, I would go start all over again. I would go back for religious studies and learn from that aspect. I think it'd be so fascinating. I think religion is so fascinating. It is
fascinating. It's a very fascinating subject. I guess I would just classify myself as agnostic, really. I think there's something that happens to us after we die. I really do, because there's so much energy that is in our bodies that keeps us alive and keeps our organs working. I mean, we have this complicated, intricate system in our body to regulate heat. Otherwise, if that wasn't there, we would literally spontaneously combust because there is so much energy that goes through our bodies. And so, the second law of thermodynamics, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. What happens when we die? What happens to all the energy? It's got to go somewhere. I don't know. I'm not sure where that somewhere is. I just, maybe this is the end when you die. Maybe it's not. I don't know. I'm open to suggestions.
Well, that's the thing, is no one really knows.
Yeah. And they may say they do.
I think it's really hard to wrap our mind around, and we all want answers. But I personally don't label myself at all. Like I don't really at this point align with any label. If somebody else wants to label me to make themselves more comfortable, fine, but I don't have a label for myself. I'm just January, and that's it. So I don't really want to be labeled. And I think with our experiences, growing up Catholic and then being converts in the Mormon church, and then leaving the church and being on a journey right now, we're right in the midst of it, which is why I won't label myself right now. Maybe at a different time I will. So, again, don't put me in a box, because who knows? I'm allowed to change my mind. That's the thing. We get so caught up in life that we have to stick with something, and we're allowed to change our mind. You guys are allowed to change your mind.
You can.
Just about anything. And, but my point is that I feel like with any of our children, that no matter what they decide as they grow up and they learn on their own, and as they educate themselves, that we will support them, you know, no matter what they decide their belief system is or their religion is, we'll support them in that. So I feel that our children have two parents who have had many different experiences with this, and that just like everything else, how they eat and their body types and who they marry and anything that they will have our support through it. So you know, we have a lot of friends and different families that have not had that understanding and love, because their family's always been one way or done things a certain way. I had a woman come up to me when I was at a Find Your Village event this year, who is Jehovah's Witness, and she was saying that her and her husband no longer believe in, do they call it, in their church or their faith? Mm-hmm. And I don't know enough to speak. I don't know enough to speak on the faith, but she told me that if they were to speak up and say that they no longer want to be part of the church and were disfellowshipped, that it is literally a rule where their family can no longer speak to them. And I personally find that completely manipulative and sad and frustrating. And she was in tears. And so I want my children, I want our next generation to have our support, you know, no matter, you know, what they believe. So it's an interesting topic. You know, this is one of those topics where I wish all of you guys were sitting with us in a coffee shop and we could like have a discussion back and forth and hear your experiences and just have an open discussion. I find this topic absolutely fascinating. Mm-hmm. You know, this is probably the short version of our...
It's incredibly shortened, I can assure you.
Of our journey in and out of Mormonism itself and just organized religion. And, you know, right now we're in a really great place, you know, with all of that. So to any of you who have gone through a similar journey and you haven't had the support or love of either your partner, your family, we totally get it. You're not alone. And, you know, just stay true to what you believe. If any of you are the opposite, where you are part of a faith and your family doesn't understand, stay true to what you believe and find the support that you need elsewhere, you know, because we all deserve to be able to just feel and be loved.
Yeah. To
feel and be loved. And where you find that, I'm just glad if you find that and you have that. Mm-hmm. So.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because in the church, when people leave the church, there's this stigma like, oh, they're inactive and, oh man, you know, we need to pray for their soul and you know, hopefully they don't end up in the outer darkness, which is, I guess, the Mormon version of purgatory.
Yeah, but I have a lot of light, baby, so I'll be fine.
And that's not the case. It's, you know, when people leave the church, it's for a reason. For us, it was for a reason, and we're doing great. Shortly after we had decided to just be done with the church, we had, you know, missionaries from that ward that we had last been in come by
many times
and open up the door, saw it was them. I stepped outside and I was like, "Hey guys, you know, before you start, we just don't believe in the church anymore." And I cut to the chase. I don't BS with people. Like, I tell you exactly what I mean. And I did it with them. And they looked at me like, you know, these 19-year-old kids, basically. And I can't believe, I'm like, oh, those kids. There we go again. And they were kind of taken back. And like, well, can we ask why? And I was like, yeah, I just don't believe Joseph Smith was a prophet. I just don't believe he was who he says he was. And one of these guys, I thought he was going to fall. I mean, he was devastated. So devastated. I mean, his shoulders slumped. He like looked up to the heavens, like wondering why. I mean, I had to console him. I was like, it's okay. I'm
you
all
had
right.
to assure him you were okay.
I literally did. I said, it's okay. We're doing great. We're happy. Things are good for us. You don't need to worry about us. You don't need to pray for us. You don't need to come back over. Everything's fine. And that's the thing is you know.
You mean you didn't turn into a heathen?
I did, but
you were okay with it.
I'm okay being.
You're a happy heathen.
I'm a happy heathen.
Where did you even get that word? He's been saying that all week.
Heathens, it's in the Bible.
Okay.
Yeah, heathens are people without religion.
You read the Bible.
Heathens are like pagans.
I know the basic stories.
Yeah, I guess what are we, like pagans now?
I don't know what. No, see, don't label me. Don't.
You're
you know what?
You're a heathen pagan.
Now you just offended all the pagans listening.
Damn it.
Stop offending people. No, not at all. I have some friends who are pagan. I love talking religion with anyone. That's open. You know,
it is fun.
Tell me what you believe. Tell me how what holidays you do and don't celebrate. Tell me, you know, the history of it. Tell me, you know, what different festivals you do and don't do. Tell me, you know, I think it's great. Like, I love learning about different people's faiths and the history of things, and I don't know. Maybe I'm just nosy, but I love it. I also love going into people's pantries and refrigerators and seeing what kind of food they have. So, you know,
really,
I do. I've actually done threads, you know, where I'm like, share a picture of your pantry or your fridge. They're actually really, really fun, popular threads.
19 years and I didn't know this.
Yeah. Oh gosh, you can tell so much about a person by looking in their fridge.
I don't care what's in people's fridge.
I love it.
I don't want to know. Usually you open a fridge and stinky with their leftovers.
Yeah, I love it.
I don't want to know.
I love it. I think it's great. So I'm done talking about this because I want to go get a coffee and I want to be heathen in a center and go get a coffee. So I hope that you guys found this interesting at the very least. And again, this was just our experience in and out of the church. And I'm sure if we tell this story, you know, even 5 years from now, it will evolve and even change a little bit.
Yeah, and there's a lot of experiences, a lot of things between that we're not that we didn't get to that we probably will at some point through this.
Yeah,
podcast.
You know, I think just talking about it on this podcast opens it up to us being able to touch on or add or pull from in future ones, and you guys will know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So, you know, when we share this on social media, you know, I would love to hear your experiences, you know.
Yeah.
And we support all of you. We love you guys so much. I've been trying to talk Brandon into doing a podcast where we read the next meme thread, and I've almost done it. But he says that the whole podcast will be us laughing, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah. You probably, there's a lot of you that listen to the podcast with your kids. If we do a meme reading
we'll just
podcast,
make it explicit.
Yeah, you're not going to want to listen to that one with your kids.
Right. Well, we'll make it, can we make one podcast explicit so that people know? Okay, so we'll do that, you know. Well, what was the one today you saw? It was, it was a rainbow and lightning down by the end of the rainbow. It was like, no pot of gold for you.
Yeah, no gold for you.
I mean, just stupid stuff.
The best one is the 6 bolts of lightning hitting the ocean. It's like, F these 6 fish in particular. Oh my gosh, so good.
One of my favorite. See, we need to do it. I need to do a new epic meme thread on Facebook, and we need to sit and read them and talk about them and laugh about them.
Oh yeah, and if you follow me on Instagram, you know I love memes and funny videos. Oh my gosh, like I'm hunting these things down all the time, and the funniest crap I can post, I will. It's funny stuff.
All right, so now I'm going to go decompress from talking about this because, like I said, this is not. I don't think about it a lot, and I'm really far removed from it. And
you're not going to go do your visiting teaching?
No, but many of you have asked me to share a little bit about my journey. So there it is. And next time I think I need the meme thread podcast. All right, you guys, we love you. And until next time.
And remember, pay your tithing.
Stop.